What if one morning you looked up and saw the ocean floating above you? The clouds had turned into waves, mountains sank beneath blue shadows, and the sky itself had become a sea. Could humans survive when the water never stops rising? Would we build floating cities or vanish beneath the tide? Today, let's imagine a world where the oceans rise above the skies and Earth begins again. The day the water took the sky. The first drop fell quietly, then another and another. Within hours, rain stopped being weather. It became the world. Rivers rose, cities drowned, and the ocean swallowed coastlines faster than anyone could count. But this wasn't just a flood. Something had changed deep inside Earth itself. What if the oceans never stopped growing? What if gravity couldn't hold them down anymore? Within a week, clouds looked like waves, and the sky turned into a shimmering mirror. The oceans had risen higher than the mountains, flooding even the skies above. It wasn't rain falling anymore. It was the sea, falling from above. Could we even call it Earth anymore? Or had our planet turned into a living, breathing ocean? As scientists scrambled to explain the impossible, satellites revealed something even more terrifying. The planet's water levels had increased by thousands of meters overnight. Entire continents disappeared beneath the waves. Where would you go if there were no high ground left? Would humans survive on mountaintops? Or drift endlessly, chasing a new horizon? The last islands. The survivors gathered on what little remained. The tips of skyscrapers, mountain peaks, and floating ships tied together by hope and plastic debris. The sound of the waves replaced the sound of cities. But here's the question. How do you live when the sky itself has become water? How do you breathe when the clouds have turned into an ocean ceiling? Scientists discovered that atmospheric pressure had changed completely. The new ocean layer reflected sunlight, creating a permanent twilight below. Crops couldn't grow, solar power died, and the air grew heavy with moisture. People began to wear oxygen masks, not because the air was toxic, but because it was too thick to breathe. How long could you survive in a world that's half air, half water? When satellites finally went silent, humanity realized we were truly alone. There were no countries anymore, no borders, no governments. Just small clusters of survivors floating between endless walls of water. Some called it the second creation. Others called it the Great Drowning. Yet, even in chaos, people adapted. Giant floating cities began to rise, made from shipwrecks, oil platforms, and collapsed skyscrapers. Engineers called them sky harbors. Could these new cities survive storms that never ended? Could they become the next evolution of humanity? Life beneath the sky sea. In this new world, sunlight barely touched the surface. The sky had become a thick, glowing layer of ocean water floating above the planet. And beneath it, the atmosphere turned into a misty ocean of its own. Birds vanished first. With no open air to fly through, their wings were useless. Then came the insects, washed out by pressure and heat. But nature doesn't give up easily. Soon, life began to change. Fish began swimming in the skies, their glowing bodies visible through the watery heavens. Plants evolved to absorb humidity instead of sunlight. Mushrooms and algae grew on every surface, feeding on moisture and minerals in the air. Would humans evolve too? Could we grow gills if given enough time? Or would we build machines that help us breathe underwater skies? Beneath this strange new atmosphere, lightning flickered inside clouds filled with plankton and salt. Storms didn't just thunder, they boiled. The rain was no longer water. It was acid mixed with ocean salt, corroding metal and skin alike. To survive, humans built domes of graphene glass under the sea sky, powered by geothermal vents. These domes became the last strongholds of civilization. They called them arcs of light. Each dome glowed in the darkness, a fragile bubble of life under a crushing sea of sky. But survival came with a cost. Inside these domes, time felt slower. The pressure distorted radio waves, sound, even memory. People started losing their sense of direction, their sense of up and down. Was this still life, or just a slow descent into the deep unknown? The new ecosystem. With sunlight trapped above the ocean sky, Earth's surface became a cold twilight world. Temperatures dropped, rain turned constant, and every drop of water carried tiny living organisms. Scientists inside the arcs began noticing something strange. The ocean water above wasn't just Earth's water anymore. It contained unknown bacteria, glowing plankton, and strange chemical elements never seen before. Was this a new form of life, or the beginning of Earth's next evolution? Soon, bioluminescent creatures started appearing across the sky layer. They looked like jellyfish, floating in slow motion above the clouds. The skyfish, as people called them, produced oxygen and light. For the first time in decades, humans could see brightness again. Not from the sun, but from life itself. Could this be nature's way of rebooting the planet? As humans studied these creatures, they realized something shocking. The organisms in the sky were cleaning the air and converting carbon dioxide into oxygen. The ocean had become Earth's new lungs. But here's the twist. If the sky itself is now an ocean, where does rain come from? Where does evaporation go? The water cycle had broken. The world was no longer recycling. It was drowning. Every drop that fell stayed. Every storm that formed lasted forever. Would the oceans ever stop rising? Or was this the new balance of life? The floating nations. Over time, humans rebuilt society on giant rafts and floating towers that drifted with the ocean winds. Each floating city had its own ecosystem. Farms of seaweed, fisheries for protein, turbines harvesting power from storms. Children were born never having seen the real sun. Only its faint glow filtered through the watery ceiling. How do you teach a child what sky means when they've never seen one? These cities communicated through underwater sound signals and drone messengers. There was no more internet, no satellites, no land routes, only ocean highways. Some people adapted faster than others. Engineers created synthetic lungs to survive the humidity. Farmers learned to grow salt-resistant crops. Even religion changed. Temples floated like ships, praying not to the heavens, but to the waters above. And yet, people began to dream again. Artists painted with glowing algae. Musicians used storm sounds as instruments. Humanity was drowning, yes, but also evolving. Would you call that the end of the world? Or the start of another? Still, danger never left. Every year, new whirlpools opened in the ocean skies, swallowing entire floating nations. No one knew where they went. Some said it led to space. Others said it led to the Earth's forgotten core. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. This was no longer the planet we once called home. It was something else, something reborn. The return of the sun. 1,000 years later, the water began to fall, not because of magic, but because Earth's heat finally stabilized. The upper ocean slowly turned to vapor and started escaping into space. The people of the arcs called it the draining. For the first time in generations, the ocean above grew thinner, revealing streaks of light breaking through. How would it feel to see sunlight for the first time in 1,000 years? The sky turned from green-blue to pale silver. Raindrops became lighter. Storms weakened. For the first time, humans saw stars, tiny trembling dots piercing through the last layers of water. Civilizations emerged from under their domes, standing on rusted towers that once scraped the surface of the sea. They looked up, crying, laughing, touching the warm air. And there it was, the sun. Not the god they prayed to, not the myth they told their children, but the real burning light of the universe. Would they rebuild the world as it once was? Or would they protect the new Earth that had evolved under the flood? In the end, maybe this flood wasn't punishment. Maybe it was healing. The planet had cleansed itself. It drowned to live again. The new Genesis, as the water finally returned to its rightful place, Earth looked different. Continents re-emerged, shaped like coral reefs, glowing with strange minerals. New species filled the oceans, descendants of creatures born in the sky sea. Humans learned to live with the water instead of fighting it. They built floating gardens, air farms, and sky harvesters. Rain was no longer fear, it was a blessing again. Maybe that's what the flood was always meant to teach us. That balance isn't about control, it's about surrender. What if we were never meant to rule the earth, but to adapt to it? And as the new dawn spread across the planet, one truth became clear. Earth wasn't destroyed. It had evolved. The oceans above the skies had given birth to something new. A living planet that finally found peace. Because sometimes you have to let the world drown before it can breathe again. So, what would you do if the oceans rose above the skies? Would you fight to survive, or float and see what the world becomes? If you enjoyed this journey through the flood that remade Earth, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next story. Because next time, we'll explore what happens after humanity leaves Earth for good. Until then, stay curious, stay alive, and remember, every ending might just be the beginning of another what if.